Chapter 1. The Discovery. 10-year-old Daniel Martinez was walking home from school on a grey November afternoon when he saw it. A leather wallet lying on the sidewalk near the entrance to Central Park. Most kids would have pocketed it without a second thought, but Daniel had been raised by his grandmother Maria with strict principles about honesty and integrity. He picked up the wallet carefully, looking around to see if anyone nearby had dropped it. The street was busy with afternoon commuters, everyone rushing past without noticing the small boy or his discovery. Daniel opened the wallet to look for identification, and his eyes widened at what he found inside. There were several credit cards, a driver's license showing a distinguished-looking man in his 50s named Robert Harrison, and, Daniel counted twice to be sure, over $2,000 in crisp $100 bills. It was more money than Daniel had ever seen in his life, more than his grandmother earned in 2 months of cleaning offices. For a moment, temptation whispered to him. With this money, they could pay the overdue rent. Grandma Maria could see a doctor about the cough she'd been hiding for months. He could get new shoes instead of wearing ones 2 sizes too small with cardboard stuffed in the soles to cover the holes. But even as these thoughts crossed his mind, Daniel knew what he had to do. Grandma Maria had always told him that character was what you did when no one was watching, that poverty was no excuse for dishonesty, and that taking what wasn't yours, no matter how much you needed it, was stealing. The driver's license showed an address on 5th Avenue. Daniel knew that area, the buildings where rich people lived, places he'd only seen from the outside while walking to the free clinic with his grandmother. He carefully put the wallet in his backpack, protecting it from the light rain that had started falling. He'd return it after school tomorrow. It was the right thing to do, even if it meant walking past their unpaid bills one more time. Chapter 2. The Journey. The next day after school, Daniel took the subway to 5th Avenue, counting his stops carefully and clutching his backpack tight. His grandmother didn't know about the wallet. He'd kept it secret, worried she might insist on mailing it, and he wanted to return it personally to make sure it got to the right person. The building at the address on the license was more intimidating than Daniel had imagined. Glass and steel stretched up toward the sky. A doorman in a uniform that looked more expensive than anything Daniel owned stood guard at the entrance. Daniel hesitated, suddenly aware of his patched jacket and worn sneakers. "Can I help you, son?" The doorman's voice wasn't unkind, but it carried the assumption that Daniel didn't belong here. "I need to see Mr. Robert Harrison. I found his wallet." Daniel pulled out the leather wallet as proof. The doorman's expression changed immediately. "Mr. Harrison has been looking for that. He's in the penthouse. I'll call up." Within minutes, Daniel was in an elevator that moved so smoothly he barely felt it, rising to the 40th floor. The doors opened directly into an apartment that took Daniel's breath away, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, art on the walls that Daniel recognized from textbooks. A man emerged from another room, matching the photo on the driver's license, but looking more tired, more human than in the official picture. Robert Harrison was tall, dressed in casual, expensive clothing, his graying hair slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. "You found my wallet?" His voice was deep, educated, carrying the confidence of someone used to being in charge. Daniel nodded, pulling the wallet from his backpack and holding it out. "I found it yesterday near Central Park. I counted the money to make sure it was all there. $2,300. I didn't take anything." Robert took the wallet, checked it quickly, then looked at Daniel with an expression the boy couldn't quite read. "You're honest. That's rare. What's your name?" "Daniel Martinez, sir." Chapter 3. The Conversation. Robert gestured to a chair, and Daniel sat nervously on the edge, afraid to lean back against the pristine white upholstery. "Can I get you something to drink? Water? Soda? Robert asked. Daniel nodded. "Water, please, sir." Robert returned with 2 bottles of expensive spring water, sitting across from Daniel in a way that suggested genuine interest rather than just politeness. "Tell me about yourself, Daniel. How old are you?" 10. I'll be 11 in March. "And you go to school around here?" PS 123 in Harlem. I take the subway. Robert was quiet for a moment, studying the boy. He noticed the shoes with cardboard visible through worn soles, the jacket that was too small, the careful way Daniel sat, as if afraid to damage anything. "Daniel, I'm going to be honest with you. I lost this wallet 2 days ago. I've been going crazy looking for it. Not because of the money, I can replace that, but it has my late wife's photo in a hidden compartment and cards with personal information that would be difficult to replace." Robert opened the wallet, showed Daniel a small pocket he hadn't noticed, and pulled out a worn photograph of a beautiful woman smiling at the camera. "She died 3 years ago. This photo is irreplaceable." Daniel felt the weight of what he'd returned suddenly increase. It wasn't just money and cards. It was something precious, something that couldn't be bought. "I want to reward you," Robert continued. "What would you like? A new bike? Video game system, whatever you want, name it." Daniel had been expecting this. On the subway ride, he'd thought about what he might ask for if offered a reward. New shoes were the practical choice. Money for rent would help his grandmother. But now, looking at this wealthy man who'd lost something irreplaceable, Daniel thought about what he really needed, what his grandmother really needed. "Sir, I don't want money or things, but I'd like to ask you for something. Anything." "What is it?" Daniel took a deep breath, gathering courage. "My grandma is sick. She has a cough that won't go away. She won't see a doctor because we don't have insurance and can't afford it. Could you help her see a doctor? Just to make sure she's okay?" Chapter 4. The Revelation. Robert's expression shifted from surprise to something deeper, respect mixed with emotion. Here was a 10-year-old boy who'd returned thousands of dollars and was asking not for himself, but for someone else. It reminded Robert of something he'd almost forgotten, that wealth was meant to serve purpose beyond accumulation. "Tell me about your grandmother." Daniel's face lit up in a way it hadn't before. "Her name is Maria Martinez. She raised me since I was 3, when my parents died in a car accident. She works 3 cleaning jobs, even though she's 68 and should be retired. She never complains, always makes sure I eat even if she doesn't, and she taught me that being poor doesn't mean being dishonest. She sounds like a remarkable woman. She is. But lately, she's been coughing a lot, especially at night. She says it's nothing, just a cold, but it's been 2 months. I hear her sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep, and it sounds bad. I'm scared, Mr. Harrison. I'm scared something's really wrong and we can't afford to find out." Robert felt something crack in his chest. His own mother had died from an illness that could have been treated if caught earlier, but she'd delayed seeing doctors because of cost concerns. He'd been wealthy by then, could have paid, but she'd been too proud to ask. He'd never forgiven himself for not noticing sooner. "Daniel, I'm going to do more than arrange a doctor's appointment. I'm going to make sure your grandmother gets the best medical care available. Any test she needs, any treatment, it's covered, and I won't take no for an answer." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Really? You'd do that? You returned something irreplaceable to me. Let me do the same for you." But Robert was thinking beyond just medical care. Something about this boy and his situation resonated deeply. Here was a child being raised right despite poverty, learning values that Robert's own privileged children had never quite grasped. "I need your grandmother's contact information. I'll have my assistant set everything up. The best doctors, comprehensive examination, whatever she needs." Daniel wrote down their information with shaking hands, barely able to believe what was happening. Chapter 5. Maria's Diagnosis. 2 days later, Maria Martinez sat in one of Manhattan's finest medical facilities, overwhelmed and confused. Daniel had explained about the wallet, about Mr. Harrison's gratitude, but Maria had been skeptical until Robert's assistant called, arranged transportation, and made it clear that everything was prepaid. The examination was thorough, more thorough than any medical care Maria had received in decades. X-rays, blood work, pulmonary function tests, scans. The doctors were kind, professional, treating her with respect that had nothing to do with her ability to pay. Robert had insisted on being present when the diagnosis was delivered. He sat with Daniel and Maria in a consultation room as Dr. Stevens explained the results. "Mrs. Martinez, you have pneumonia that's developed into a more serious lung infection. Left untreated, it would have become life-threatening within months, but we've caught it in time. With proper antibiotics and treatment, you'll make a full recovery." Maria burst into tears. Daniel held her hand, crying too. Robert felt his own eyes getting wet, watching this grandmother and grandson who had so little but loved each other so much. "Thank you," Maria said to Robert in accented English. "Thank you for seeing my Daniel's heart, for helping us. Your grandson's honesty saved your life, Mrs. Martinez. He could have kept that wallet, used the money for immediate needs. Instead, he did the right thing, and that decision led to this moment. You raised him well." Over the following weeks, Robert found himself increasingly involved in Daniel and Maria's lives. It started with checking on Maria's treatment progress, but evolved into something more. He visited their small apartment in Harlem, saw how they lived. A one-bedroom where Daniel slept on a couch, where every item was worn but immaculately clean, where love filled spaces that money couldn't. Robert, who'd been lost since his wife's death, who'd thrown himself into work and neglected his own children, found purpose in helping this small family. He arranged for Daniel to attend a better school, one with resources and opportunities. He helped Maria find a single cleaning job at his own company, one that paid more than her 3 previous jobs combined and included health insurance. Chapter 6. The Transformation. The changes in Daniel and Maria's life were gradual but profound. Daniel transferred to a private school in January, one of the best in the city. At first, he felt out of place. The other kids came from wealthy families, wore expensive clothes, talked about vacations to places Daniel had only read about. But Daniel's teachers quickly recognized something special. His essays showed depth of character unusual for his age. His work ethic was extraordinary. He never missed homework, asked thoughtful questions, helped other students without being asked. He'd learned from poverty lessons that privilege couldn't teach. Robert visited regularly, checking on Daniel's progress, becoming something between mentor and surrogate grandfather. He brought books he thought Daniel would enjoy, discussed school projects, attended Daniel's science fair, where the boys' project on sustainable energy for low-income housing won first place. Maria, meanwhile, was thriving in her new position. She worked in the executive office building Robert owned, managing the cleaning and maintenance staff. Her years of experience, combined with natural leadership abilities that had been wasted on survival jobs, made her invaluable. Robert promoted her twice in 6 months, but it was the emotional transformations that were most profound. Maria, who'd been worn down by years of struggle, began to smile more, to dream again. She took GED classes at night, something she'd never had time for before. At 68, she was building a life beyond mere survival. Daniel grew more confident, but never lost the humility and empathy that had defined his character. He volunteered at homeless shelters, tutored kids from his old school, never forgot where he came from or how lucky he'd been. Robert, for his part, was changing too. His relationship with his own adult children, a son and daughter who'd always seemed distant, focused on their trust funds and social lives, began to improve. Watching Daniel made Robert realize he'd failed to instill in his own kids the values that Maria had given her grandson. He started meeting with his children regularly, really talking instead of just managing their finances. He shared Daniel's story, used it as a mirror to reflect on what he'd done wrong in his own parenting. Slowly, painfully, he began building real relationships with them. Chapter 7. The Crisis. Everything seemed perfect until one evening in late spring. Robert received a call from the hospital. Daniel had been admitted. Maria's voice on the phone was panicked, barely coherent. Robert rushed to the hospital, finding Maria in the waiting room, devastated. "What happened?" Robert demanded. Maria explained through tears. Daniel had been walking home from his new school when he witnessed an elderly woman being mugged. Without thinking of his own safety, he'd intervened, yelling for help and trying to protect the woman. The mugger had pushed Daniel hard. He'd hit his head on the sidewalk. The doctors say he has concussion, maybe worse. They're doing scans now. Robert sat with Maria, holding her hand while they waited. He prayed, something he hadn't done since his wife's death, pleading with whatever forces might exist to protect this boy who'd already given so much. Hours passed. Finally, a doctor emerged. Daniel has a moderate concussion and some bruising, but no permanent damage. He'll need rest and monitoring, but he'll be fine. He's incredibly lucky. The relief was overwhelming. Maria sobbed, and Robert found himself crying too. This boy had become so important to him, the thought of losing him was unbearable. When they were allowed to see Daniel, he was awake, looking small and vulnerable in the hospital bed. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I know you tell me not to get involved in dangerous situations, but I couldn't let him hurt that lady." "You were brave," Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. "Brave and foolish, like all the best heroes, but please, Daniel, don't scare us like this again." The incident made the local news. Boy returns wallet, gets second chance, becomes hero. The story captured public imagination. The poor kid who'd done the right thing, gotten help in return, and was now helping others. Reporters wanted interviews, but Robert and Maria protected Daniel from the attention, wanting him to remain grounded. The elderly woman Daniel had helped visited the hospital. Her name was Dorothy Chen, 78, a retired teacher. She brought flowers and tears of gratitude. "You saved me. I will never forget your courage." Chapter 8. The Scholarship. As Daniel recovered, Robert began thinking about the future. The boy was exceptional, not just in character but in intellect. His grades at the private school were outstanding. His teachers reported he had potential for anything he wanted to pursue. But private school through high school, then college, would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Robert could afford it easily, but he worried about creating dependency, about Daniel feeling like a charity case rather than someone earning his way. He discussed it with Maria, whose pride and gratitude were in constant tension. "Mr. Harrison, you've already done so much. I can't ask for more." "You're not asking, I'm offering. But I want to do it right." Robert established a scholarship fund, ostensibly open to any student at Daniel's school who demonstrated both academic excellence and outstanding character. The selection criteria were carefully written to essentially guarantee Daniel would receive it, but framed so it felt earned rather than given. Daniel won the scholarship at the end of 6th grade. The award covered full tuition through high school, plus a substantial college fund. At the award ceremony, Daniel gave a speech that left the audience in tears. "When I found Mr. Harrison's wallet, I didn't know it would change my life. I just knew what my grandma taught me. Do the right thing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." This scholarship isn't just money for education. It's proof that good actions have consequences, that integrity matters, that one honest choice can create ripples that change everything. Robert watched from the audience, his own children beside him. His daughter Emily leaned over and whispered, "Dad, I wish you'd taught us what Daniel knows. We had everything, but we learned nothing important." It was a moment of painful honesty, but also hope. Emily had started volunteering at the school, mentoring younger students. Robert's son Michael had taken a job at a non-profit instead of coasting on trust fund money. Daniel's example was transforming the whole family. After the ceremony, Robert pulled Daniel aside. "I need to tell you something. I set up that scholarship specifically for you. I wanted you to have it, but I wanted you to feel you'd earned it because you have. Your character earned it long before the selection committee met." Daniel was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "I kind of figured, but thank you for letting me feel I earned it. That matters." Chapter 9. The years pass. 3 years later, Daniel was 14 and thriving. He'd grown tall, his voice had changed, but his essential character remained constant. He was student council president, captain of the debate team, and maintained a 4.0 GPA while still volunteering regularly at shelters and tutoring younger students. Maria, now 71, had completed her GED and was taking community college classes in business management. She'd been promoted again, and now oversaw facilities management for all of Robert's commercial properties. She'd moved into a better apartment, still modest, but safe and comfortable. Robert had become a fixture in their lives, joining them for holidays, attending Daniel's school events, becoming the grandfather figure Daniel had never had. His own children, watching their father's transformation, had softened toward him, recognizing that his involvement with Daniel and Maria had made him a better person and father. One evening, Robert invited Daniel to his office, the one on the 40th floor of his company's headquarters. "I want to talk to you about your future. You'll be applying to colleges in 3 years. Have you thought about what you want to study?" "I want to study law, Mr. Harrison. I want to help people like Grandma and me, people who get lost in the system because they don't have money or connections. I want to be the lawyer who stands up for people everyone else ignores." Robert nodded, unsurprised. Of course, Daniel would choose a path of service. "You'd make an excellent lawyer. You have integrity, intelligence, and empathy. That's a powerful combination. But that's not really why I asked you here." Robert opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. "Daniel, I've been thinking about legacy. I built a successful company, made a lot of money, but I was missing the point. Money is just a tool. What matters is what you build with it, who you help, what you leave behind." He slid the folder across the desk. "This is the charter for a new foundation, the Martinez Harrison Foundation for Youth Development. Its mission is to find kids like you, kids with character and potential who need opportunity. It'll provide scholarships, mentoring, medical care, whatever it takes to help deserving young people build better lives." Daniel opened the folder, scanning the documents, his eyes widening. "You're naming it after me and you?" Chapter 10. The Foundation. The Martinez Harrison Foundation launched when Daniel was 15. The opening ceremony was held in Harlem, in the community center near where Daniel had grown up. Robert insisted Daniel speak, despite the boy's nervousness about public speaking. "5 years ago, I found a wallet," Daniel began, his voice carrying across the room. "I didn't know that simple act of honesty would lead to this. Mr. Harrison's generosity changed my life and my grandmother's life, but it also taught him something, taught all of us something about what really matters." He gestured to Robert, who stood to the side. "This foundation isn't about Mr. Harrison being charitable. It's about recognizing that talent and character exist everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. It's about finding kids who are doing the right thing in difficult circumstances and giving them the tools to build extraordinary lives." The foundation's first year helped 23 students, providing full scholarships, medical care for families, and mentoring programs. Daniel, despite being only 15, served on the selection committee, bringing perspective that the adult board members lacked. He could spot kids who were genuinely struggling but pushing forward, distinguish between those who needed help and those who wanted handouts. Maria also worked with the foundation, managing operations with the same excellence she'd brought to Robert's facilities management. She understood the families they were helping, understood their pride, their fear, their desperate hope that things could be better. Robert watched his creation come to life and realized this was his true legacy. Not the real estate empire he'd built, not the wealth he'd accumulated, but the lives changed by investing in young people who reminded him why any of it mattered. His own children became involved too. Emily joined the board, using her social connections to raise funds. Michael managed the foundation's investments, ensuring long-term sustainability. They'd finally found purpose that their privilege had denied them. One evening, after a particularly successful fundraiser, Robert sat with Daniel on the balcony of his penthouse, looking out over the city. "You know, when I lost my wallet 5 years ago, I was angry, stressed, worried about the hassle. Now I think losing that wallet was the best thing that ever happened to me. Why? Because it led me to you. You reminded me what matters. Before we met, I was successful, but empty. Rich but poor in every way that counts. You gave me purpose, Daniel. You saved me just as much as I helped you." Chapter 11. Full Circle. Daniel graduated high school at 17, valedictorian of his class, with acceptance letters from every Ivy League school he'd applied to. He chose Yale, not for prestige, but because their public interest law program was the best in the country. Robert attended the graduation, sitting with Maria, both of them crying as Daniel gave his valedictory address. "I stand here today because 5 years ago, I had a choice. Keep money I desperately needed, or return it to its rightful owner. I chose honesty because my grandmother taught me that who we are is defined by what we do when no one's watching. That choice changed my life, but more importantly, it created ripples that have changed dozens of lives through the foundation that bears my name." He looked directly at Robert. Mr. Harrison could have just given me a reward and sent me away. Instead, he saw an opportunity for something bigger, to help not just me, but my grandmother, his own family, and countless other young people. He taught me that wealth without purpose is meaningless, that privilege is responsibility, that we're measured not by what we accumulate, but by what we give away. The audience stood, applauding. Maria sobbed openly. Robert felt overwhelming pride and gratitude for having met this extraordinary young man. After graduation, before Daniel left for Yale, Robert gave him one final gift, not money, but the original wallet. "I want you to have this. It started everything. Consider it a reminder of where you came from and why character matters more than circumstances." Daniel held the leather wallet, now worn with age, and felt the weight of 5 years of transformation. "I'll treasure this. But you know the real gift wasn't the wallet or the help you gave us. It was showing me that one person can make a difference, that reaching across divides of wealth and class can create something beautiful." At Yale, Daniel thrived. He joined the Public Defender Organization, worked with legal aid clinics, and spent summers back in New York working with the foundation. Maria, now 74 and semi-retired, volunteered full-time with the foundation, becoming its heart and soul. Robert, at 63, had shifted focus from business to philanthropy. The foundation had grown to help over 100 students annually, with success stories emerging regularly. Kids going to college, escaping poverty, building lives of meaning and contribution. One student, a girl named Aisha, who'd been selected by the foundation, wrote to Daniel, "You found a wallet and changed your life. Your story changed mine." Now I want to change someone else's. That's how it works, right? We pay it forward. Chapter 12. The legacy lives. On 5 years later, Daniel graduated from Yale Law School at the top of his class. He'd received offers from prestigious firms offering starting salaries of $200,000, but he'd turned them all down. Instead, he was joining a non-profit legal organization defending poor defendants who couldn't afford private attorneys. At his graduation, Robert, now 68 and slowing down from health issues, traveled to New Haven with Maria, his children, and a group of students from the foundation. They watched Daniel receive his degree, then listened as he addressed his graduating class. Today, we graduate with degrees from one of the best law schools in the world. We have opportunities most people never get. The question is, what will we do with these opportunities? Will we serve only those who can afford our services? Or will we remember that justice should be available to everyone, regardless of their ability to pay? He shared his own story one more time. The wallet, the choice, the ripples that had spread from that single act of honesty. I learned that day that integrity is its own reward, but also that integrity can open doors, create opportunities, change lives. I'm using my law degree to defend people who've been forgotten by the system because once upon a time, I was one of those people, and someone didn't forget me. After graduation, Robert held a small dinner at a restaurant in New Haven. Daniel, Maria, Robert's children, and a dozen students from the foundation who'd come to celebrate. Over dinner, Robert stood to make a toast. 27 years ago, my wife and I had children. I thought I knew what legacy meant, passing down wealth, a family business, material security, but I was wrong. Legacy isn't what you leave to people, it's what you leave in people. He looked at Daniel. You taught me that. When you returned my wallet, you gave me something far more valuable than the cash inside. You gave me purpose. You showed me what really matters. And because of that, hundreds of young people now have opportunities they wouldn't have had. His eyes were shining with tears. I lost a wallet and gained a family. I gained meaning. I gained understanding of what wealth is really for. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Daniel stood and hugged Robert, this man who'd become mentor, friend, and grandfather figure all in one. Maria joined them, creating a circle of 3 people whose lives had been transformed by a single choice made on a sidewalk 10 years ago. The foundation continued to grow, eventually helping thousands of students. Many of them went on to help others, creating cascading ripples of positive change. Daniel's law career was distinguished not by wealth, but by impact. Landmark cases defending the rights of the poor, work that changed policy and helped millions. Maria lived to 82, long enough to see Daniel married and to hold his first child, a daughter they named Maria. She died peacefully, surrounded by family, knowing her grandson had become a man who would make the world better. Robert passed 2 years later at 70. His obituary mentioned his business successes, but focused more on the foundation, on the lives changed, on his transformation from wealthy but empty to wealthy and purposeful. At his funeral, Daniel gave the eulogy. Robert Harrison could have just given me a reward for returning his wallet and never thought about me again. Instead, he saw an opportunity for something bigger. He saw that goodness deserves support, that character matters more than circumstances, that one person can change the world by helping others change theirs. The wallet, preserved carefully, was donated to the foundation's small museum, a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things we find aren't in the wallets we discover, but in the choices we make when we find them.